How we doing? A to Z Sports. Welcome in live here on a Monday morning, the Monday morning of Cut Day, Cut Week. The NFL preseason is behind us. Training camp is behind us. We are ready to go for Week 1. But before we do that, NFL team's going to have to take that training camp roster, cut it down to 53. So I'm in with Jack Gentry. We're talking Titans roster moves. They've got a lot of them to make really over the next 40, not even 48 hours at this point, like 30 hours at this point until the NFL cut day deadline. So we talk about some of the big decisions, what we find intriguing about a few different position groups on the team, and where we think the Titans might go at those groups. And then you see it down there on the show graphic, but the Titans made a big move at a position of need, but they didn't add a player. They went away from a player at a position of need, and so now we have to break down, as you see in the show title as well, the best options to solve their biggest problem, running out of time before Week 1 to do so. So, got a lot of great things to talk about, Jack. And before we get into it today, make sure you tell the fine folks what to do.
That's right. Welcome in on Monday. Big week here after the Titans wrapped up the preseason with a win against the Patriots. While you guys are filing in, make sure if you're watching on Facebook to share the show to all of the Titans groups that you're in, because I know you're in a bunch of them. I see some of you guys on Titans Facebook all the time. So make sure we get that link out in those groups to grow the conversation there. If you're watching on Twitch, text some of your friends. Wake up with A to Z today. We're going to talk Titans. I know there's a big discussion to be had, and we want y'all to be a part of it. So we want to see you in the chat throughout the show. If you're watching on Twitch, if you're watching on YouTube, tap that bell icon at the top of your screen so you get an update every time A to Z Sports goes live, every time A to Z Sports posts a video. You don't want to miss a second of the action in such a pivotal week for the Tennessee Titans. So, Sam, with that said, let's dive right into it.
All right, let's do it officially. Welcome into A to Z Sports, powered by the BetMGM app. We're live every weekday morning at 8 Central Time, streaming on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. We've got our links posted segment by segment on X with all the good Titans coverage. That includes articles and more updates following the team on our X feed at ATOZ Sports. You can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Threads for more Titans coverage on social media. So let's thank our sponsors for making this show happen and for making things happen for you. That's Wilson County Hyundai. Make Wilson County Hyundai a part of your new car buying process in Lebanon or at wilsoncountyhyundai.com. The Bone and Joint Institute, the region's destination for comprehensive orthopedic and sports medicine care at boneandjointtn.org. Farm Bureau Health Plans, better coverage, better rates, better service. Learn more about a plan for you at fbhp.com/ATOZ. Krebs Kubota, an elite Kubota dealer located in Columbia, Franklin, Murfreesboro. Visit them online at krebskubota.com. And the Aura app, they have what it takes to keep you safe online with credit and identity theft monitoring. Get with the Aura app and use our link, aura.com/ATOZ for a 2-week free trial. That's a 2-week free trial. Love our sponsors. Thank you to our sponsors. And Jack, as we get ready to go this morning, it's countdown time at this point.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, roster cuts are being made at a rapid rate. Yesterday, you saw NFL teams coming out with their first set of them. I'd imagine we'll see more today as practices go on. And then by, I believe it's 3 p.m. Central tomorrow, the Titans will be at 53. What does that do for you? Like, is that like a little buzz for the first regular season week going on here?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, it's super interesting just looking around the league at who might be available, because even though tomorrow is cut day, if there's somebody out there that the Titans like, they're going to have to make room for him somehow. So there's still plenty of options out there. There will be as time moves on. But yeah, a couple of huge positions to watch. I think that we're going to talk about a few of them today. So I'll save those for later. But yeah, absolutely something to watch. I don't know if I really like the massive cut down.
So I guess that's an interesting, because this is the first time we've really had this like almost 90 to 53. It's hard to track harder to track, I guess, right?
It's harder to track. It's also tougher for these guys to come in and make an immediate impact without being acclimated to the offense or the defensive scheme. I mean, that makes things on coaches a lot harder. That makes things on these guys who are getting cut from around the league.
Who are you referring to there?
Well, just any like veteran, any surprise cut, like, the Titans could have a couple, but just looking around the league, if there's an experienced wide receiver that hits the free agent market, I mean, and the Titans
Right.
like who they
Yeah,
see, it's going to take a minute. He's not going to be ready for week 1. So it makes things a lot harder out there. And, for that reason, I'm not a big fan of it.
Yeah, 53s are interesting because it comes out and like you have your initial 53-man roster, but even the initial 53 that the Titans have tomorrow afternoon when cut days, like the deadline has passed, I think I'd be stunned if it was actually the 53-man on week 1. Like you see other guys get signed and then other guys get released right after that. There's some of the injury management as well. That's kind of weird there, how if you're trying to get somebody to IR, and not start them on the PUP list, you have to put them on the 53 to then put them on IR to then elevate somebody else. So there could be somebody that you're like, oh, they got waived. And then 2 hours later, they're no longer waived and they're on the 53-man roster. They're like signed back to the roster. So, yeah, you kind of have to wait for the dust to settle a little bit. I ran to that issue last year with the Titans where, you had some surprise names. I believe Julius Chestnut was one of them that made the initial 53. And it was like, man, what a great story. Awesome for Julius. We all went and talked to Julius in the locker room. It was this great, like, kind of moment to be like, hey, you made the roster. And he was waived like 2 days later, like straight back to the practice squad. He ended up coming back later in the year. But the point being, like, these things are not set in stone ever, but like really up until practice week leading up to week 1, which wouldn't start till next Monday, a week from today.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of moving parts. And I see Jameson, he's right on the money with his comment. He said there's about 48 guys that are actually safe. Just like the Julius Chestnut story. Some of these guys are going to have to be prepared to be let down or to be waived and then brought back on the practice squad or to find a new home somewhere else. We've seen that happen.
And yeah, well, and the way it works too, it's not necessarily, I guess, like you picture it, right? You picture cut day, how it's portrayed in the movies, how they kind of have shown you in Hard Knocks sometimes, where it's like, yeah, if you get waived, you're getting brought into the coach's office and, hey, we need your iPad, bring your iPad, shake the hand, tap on the butt. We'll see you later. Good luck. Hope, wishing you all the best. But if you do make the team, it's not like there's this moment where it's like, sit them down and we're like, hey, guess what? You've made our 53. Congrats, man. That's not how it works. You just keep coming to work until they tell you to stop. It's like you just keep showing up to the meeting rooms and the practices. Cut day comes, cut day goes, and no news is good news. So yeah, it's not exactly how you would say. And that goes to that point there from Jameson that 48 guys are actually safe in reality. And just because you're on the roster the moment the deadline passes does not mean you're still going to be on the roster by the time practice starts the next morning. Like
it's head on a swivel season, not just for fans, not just for media, not just for writers, but for these players as well, because they don't know what to expect really in this, in these next couple of days. So
it's a good way of putting it, head on a swivel season, because like you said too, like we've officially hit the point and we haven't been up to this point throughout training camp because there have been no roster cuts. Like typically throughout training camp, you're looking at who's getting cut everywhere else and who could potentially be a good fit for, a certain team's needs. And this is something we're monitoring throughout the preseason. But without the gradual cut deadlines and it all kind of coming at once, not only is there a concern about, okay, well, what does my 53 look like? But what is everybody else's 53 going to look like? And how does that affect this position group or that position group if a guy of value becomes available? So, Jack, this is kind of what I wanted to lead off the show talking about today and asking. So we're going to leave kicker out of it. We will get there, as you see at the bottom of your show graphic. We will get to kicker later on in the show, talk about the Titans kicker news, and evaluate that situation around the league. But I have this question for the chat and for you as we get ready to kick things off here on Monday's show. Question is, what Titans position group will be the most intriguing during roster cuts? What Titans position group will be the most intriguing during roster cuts? What group do you have your eye on for both who makes the 53, and for everybody else's different rosters, who might become available, who could get signed. So that is our first question. Before we get our answers, before we go to you, chat, I want to tell everybody about our friends at Krebs Kubota. Krebs Kubota is Middle Tennessee's preferred equipment dealer with convenient locations in Columbia, Franklin, and Murfreesboro. Krebs is an elite Kubota dealer and has served the community for over 18 years. Krebs Kubota sells, services, and supplies parts for the best equipment in the industry and has a large selection of inventory in stocks at all 3 locations. That's Columbia, Franklin, and Murfreesboro. Right now, they have a customer satisfaction rooted in outstanding parts and service department. It is their goal at Krebs to have the best parts and service in the industry, which stands for the best equipment in the industry. Visit them online. It's KrebsKubota.com. That's Krebs with a K, Kubota.com.
Check out these guys as well. BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. They've got plenty of action going on over there right now with week 0 in college football getting underway and Vanderbilt stacking that first win of the season. Hopefully many more to come. But anyways, BetMGM is the perfect place for you to enjoy sports like never before. So sign up using our code A to Z Sports, ATOZ Sports, and you'll receive up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if you don't win that first bet. When you register with BetMGM, you'll get instant access to a variety of parlay selection features, live betting options, player props, and daily boosted odds specials. Believe me, guys, they have it all, and it's so easy to navigate. Find out why BetMGM is the king of sportsbooks. BetMGM and GameSense remind you to play responsibly and offer resources to help you make appropriate choices. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. 21 years of age or older to wager. Tennessee only. New customer offer. All promotions are subject to qualification and eligibility requirements. First online, real money wager only. Rewards issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets. Bonus bets expire 7 days from issuance. For problem gambling support, call the Tennessee Red Line at 800-889-9789.
All right, so we asked the question to the chat. We want to know what Titans position group will be the most intriguing during roster cuts. Jack, we have our Ask Me Anything section on Monday. I might have to add a little question about your little Vanderbilt comment there. I'm gonna
Okay.
you're rocking the hat today. We're going to have to talk Vanderbilt football at some point later on in the show. But, Jack, I'll send you to the chat as well, see what the people are saying. What Titans position group the most intriguing on cut day?
Yeah, so it's not surprising to see a couple of these answers here, and that's what you're going to get for the majority. We'll start here with wide receiver from IR Hoshi. O-line says Rooney Glover. Inside linebacker says Lane. Puka says wide receiver. Ashley agrees. Eric says linebackers. Corners say Nathaniel. Those cornerbacks is a tricky little group out there. Chandler and Scott both on the same page at wide receiver. Orlando's going linebacker. Ryan says the secondary as a whole, the DB position. Wide receiver and inside linebacker from Jaron. Mr. Jones says wide receiver. If we're not counting a kicker, it's wide receiver, says Darius. Matt says linebackers. Demetrius is on wide receivers. Jonathan's also on wide receivers. Andre says wide receiver. Top tier wide receiver. Major Keys wide receiver. Our guy Eddie says O-line. OLB. I don't know if he means OLB or
outside linebacker 4.
Think so?
I mean, it is a position battle for the most part. I mean,
there's 4 that are set in stone almost at this point.
I wouldn't say so. Who are your 4 that you're saying are set in stone?
Well, obviously, you have Harold Landry out there. You've got on the other side Arden Key. You've got, who am I forgetting here? Arden Key, Rashad Weaver, and then Caleb Murphy. I think he's had the most complete preseason of just about any Titan with sacks in all 3 games.
So
the 5th spot.
I do think Caleb Murphy's on the team. I think set in stone is a bit of a reach for him, but I would lean towards him being on the team only because I think his preseason flashes have made him very difficult to get onto a practice squad, I would assume. And so you probably have to 53 him if you're the Titans, even if you're not super bullish on like what his defensive impact could be for you this year. You probably have to 53 him. So I do think like OLB 4 is going to be Caleb Murphy, but I'm also not surprised to see it on somebody's list, I guess. But I mean, this is an overwhelming 2 groups, really overwhelming here. It's inside linebacker and wide receiver. I just kind of scrolled down and I saw more comments from Caleb, from Kenneth, from Jeff, from Roy, from Chris, from Mike that are either on wide receiver or inside linebacker. And Jack, I think the chat got it right. I think the 2 or 3 that we're talking that they commented are probably what I would agree with. But for me, I'm really interested in seeing wide receiver. And not really because I don't feel like I have a good sense of what the Titans are going to do, because I think I know how wide receiver is going to shake out. I'm more fascinated by how they maneuver the injuries of Kyle Phillips and Treylon Burks and a potential IR stint for Kyle Phillips into their 53 man and the timing of everything, because you have to keep Phillips on the 53, even if he's going to IR. But does that mean that you stack the extra body on the initial 53? Do you try and waive somebody and then sign them to the 53 after? Who becomes available in the free agent market? And what is that kind of, how does that throw a wrench in your plans? So I think they'll have DeAndre Hopkins, Treylon Burks, Kyle Phillips, Nick Westbrook-Akine, Chris Moore. Those 5 for sure we know are locks to be on the 53. I think they have to keep a 6th. That 6th, to me, and my final 53-man roster prediction was Kearis Jackson for the Titans.
Mm-hmm.
And then if it's those 5 that are active, but Treylon might not be active week 1, do you then elevate somebody else like a Mason Kinsey or a Colton Dowell from the practice squad for week 1 in New Orleans? It'll be a very interesting group to see how they maneuver it. But I think we might see 6 wide receivers on the initial 53. Not something I thought we were going to get, especially with that 6th being Kearis Jackson over a Colton Dowell. So your thoughts on the wide receiver position?
Well, I find myself agreeing with you. Kearis Jackson, a huge touchdown grab. He looked good out there against New England. However, there's a name you didn't mention that I think is going to be in the mix here as well. And that's Mason Kinsey. He's had a pretty big preseason. He always has the same preseason, it feels like. But, I don't know where they think his ceiling can be. He's definitely a name to watch for me. And, with how much time he has in the NFL, I think that's valuable experience. I know that Kearis Jackson can do some things in the return game as well, which kind of puts them, even. But I do think that Kearis Jackson's ceiling is higher than Mason Kinsey's. I don't know if I trust him more than Kinsey,
and like
though.
Brian brings up 7 wide receivers here. I don't think we see 7 wide receivers on the roster. You could always see an elevation for week 1. You could see somebody active from the practice squad, which I think is more likely for Mason Kinsey. I just have a hard time seeing how he fits on a 53. Like, we have to keep in mind when we talk about any of these position groups and who you're cutting or keeping, the likelihood of the player being scooped up by another team. And a guy like Kearis Jackson, who I think has some high upside, has started to show some prowess as a receiving threat, but really the Titans value as a returner, as both a kick returner and a punt returner, which would be the reason he's the guy to replace Kyle Phillips on the first 53. I think that's somebody who you could see other NFL teams potentially have interest in if you're looking for your punt returner, you're looking for your kick returner. Mason Kinsey, you've been able to throw on the practice squad time over time over time for the last 3 years. And what Mason Kinsey has been for the Titans has been valuable to have that guy on the P squad, ready to go when you need him to, consistent in practice. I don't see how he fits on a 53. I think he fits as your roster elevation week 1 and potentially suits up against New Orleans, but you don't put that guy on the roster, I don't think.
Well, let me ask you this then, because Colton Dowell was the 7th round draft pick. Could they have probably got him as a UDFA? Yeah, it's up for debate.
Yeah.
But when it comes to Dowell versus Kearis Jackson, let's say hypothetically the Titans are to release both of them. Which has the better chance of sticking around for the practice squad? Because Dowell does have that 7th round tag.
Yeah, I
Jackson's
think
went to Georgia, has done a lot more. Really?
Yeah, I'm UT Martin, 7th round, not really viewed like as a valuable special teamer right now. Like, you have to keep in mind, I don't think teams are hitting this waiver market and trying to acquire depth wide receivers off another team's roster to then come in and be impactful offensive players on their team. Like, it's usually for special teams impact, for a return man. And so Dowell has been on kick coverage, but he hasn't really been too impactful there just yet. And I think he certainly has the ability to, but he's still viewed as more of a project. And I think the Titans have a better chance of sticking him on their practice squad than maybe a Kyaris Jackson, who teams could see as an NFL-ready punt returner to be back there as their guy. Quite honestly, I don't think either one gets nabbed off of a practice squad and thrown onto a 53, but I think you're pretty safe with Dowell. He's a low profile, like a Division II local guy. I don't see him being huge on too many teams' radars.
I agree with you, and I don't know if it was Vrabel trying to keep his value where it should be so that they can get him back if they do cut him. But after the game, he was asked what he thought about Dowell, who made one big catch, and it was probably the best ball that Malik Willis threw all night, in my opinion. But he kind of was frustrated. He was like, "Yeah, I mean, he lined up wrong one time, and he messed up a route, and he kind of just started with the bad and ended with the good." But it still seems like Dowell has a long way to go. And that's, like you mentioned, coming from the FCS level to the NFL level, that's a huge change, and it's going to take a little time.
There's a lot of they like his physicality. They like his frame. And Colton Dowell looks the part. Standing next to him on the practice field and in the locker room, the guy looks and built like an NFL wide receiver. And I certainly think he has the physical tools to be very capable and impactful in some degree. And I've been saying this for a couple months now. I think they view they being the Titans, view Colton Dowell as their NWI replacement next year after NWI walks in free agency. And you have another guy with that kind of big body, like that blocking ability that doesn't necessarily stick out athletically, but knows where to go, is valuable on special teams. Like, I think Colton Dowell fits into that mold pretty well. And I think that's kind of the role we will see him play in the future. But as of now, there's a lot of inconsistencies with knowing where to be, the awareness, like where he lines up, the play strength at times. And so for those reasons, he's a little bit more raw, has a little bit more work to do, and I don't think is ready for their 53. So that's kind of where I fall with him.
That's understandable for me, and I'm seeing a lot of the chat say surprise cut NWI. That he's not my surprise cut. I think that NWI absolutely has whether Titans fans are happy or not with it, a very significant role in the offense, especially without Burks and especially without Phillips. But my group's the inside linebacker position. I think there's a lot of questions still left unanswered here. Obviously, you bring in Azeez Al-Shaair. He's a lock. Dr. Gibby seems like he's got the starting job locked down. Monty Rice has been probably the most disappointing player in my eyes.
Yeah. I think it's fascinating for that reason. Monty Rice is, chaotic.
You've got Chance Campbell, who once again led the Titans in tackles against New England. Luke Gifford. And the odd man out right now, I would assume, would be Ben Niemann. But I'm not so sure Monty Rice makes this team. Sam, one of my coaches when I was in middle school told me that you can't make the club if you're sitting in the tub. And Monty Rice has been sitting in the tub all summer. And this is a team that just let David Long walk for cheap because he couldn't stay on the field. David Long won them playoff games. David Long's coming out party was against that Ravens team where everyone was so worried about containing Lamar Jackson, and David Long did it all by himself. Like, David Long accomplished a lot in a short time in Tennessee, although injuries did plague him. I just can't see them treating Monty Rice any differently, and he hasn't earned to be treated any differently. He hasn't earned the benefit of the doubt. So Monty Rice, I understand he was drafted. I understand there's a lot of speed there, and that's what they're looking for. But Niemann has some wheels on him. Like, I think that Niemann could easily – I think Niemann could easily replace Monty Rice, and we could be talking on Wednesday about Monty Rice and his time with the Titans being, coming to an end. I think that's a legitimate possibility. So he's my surprise cut. But Sam, I don't know how much of a surprise it would be at this point.
Yeah, so I don't like to be. This is a gross for me because I don't like to do this very often. especially not online, but I will do it on the show. I don't like to do it online, but I will do it on the show, which is be the remember when I told you that guy. And the chat might remember 3 weeks ago, I told Austin, Monty Rice was my guy that I was bearish on early on in camp, just watching him practice, watching the way the rotations went. And I thought to myself, he might mess around and get himself cut. And the lack of availability that Monty has had over the last few weeks has only made that my view on him potentially being a cut candidate, a surprise cut candidate, a lot less surprising and, a much more real possibility. I think Ben Neiman's on this team. I think the question is Chance Campbell versus Monty Rice. I think Ben Neiman is going to be on the team with Jack Gibbons, with Luke Gifford, and with Azeez. And I think one of Monty or Chance Campbell will not be on the team. So that is based on how I think the Titans view their inside backers and who is the backup to certain styles of play. I think Neiman is their version of Azeez if Azeez is not available to them. So, yeah, he makes the 53. It's an interesting group because, is Monty Rice expendable? And that's the question that they'll have to figure out. And what does his injury do for that position group as well? Like, is he somebody who goes on the PUP list? Is he somebody who goes on IR? Like, how severe is the injury? I don't know. And I see people asking, I see people asking in the chat, like, if there's any scoop. I'm not sure. He played 7 snaps in Chicago and has really been a ghost since then. I've seen him working on like the side field, working through some stuff, doing his rehab, but nobody really knows how severe Monty Rice's injury issues are, what he's working through, or how long he'll be gone. It's a wrinkle in a position group that is going to be chaotic.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but if Monty Rice is to be cut, that would mean that the Titans at inside linebacker only have one player on that group who was selected in the NFL draft, and that would be Chance Campbell.
I believe that would be correct.
Gosh, that's crazy.
Jack Gibbons was not. Luke Gifford was not. I don't know if Ben Neiman was drafted. That's a possibility. That was Arizona like 5 years ago, so I don't know. But yeah, I know Gifford was not, and Gibbons obviously was not, and Azeez was not. So yeah, the Titans finding a way to make it happen with UDFAs at inside linebacker, make that group very interesting. Jack, there was a roster move that the Titans made yesterday that really the position group that we banned, kicker. Yeah. The reason I banned it from the chat is because I think everybody's intrigued and waiting with bated breath to see what the Titans do at kicker. So we're going to talk about the roster move. I want to get your reaction to it. And then we're going to go over some potential options that aren't on the free agent market, but could be as cut day is looming. So I want to talk about that. But first, I want to tell everybody about our friends at Farm Bureau Health Plans. Farm Bureau Health Plans, better coverage, better rates, better service. Learn more about a plan for you at fbhp.com/ATOZ. They're serving Tennesseans for over 75 years at Farm Bureau Health Plans. Much has changed in Tennessee over the years, but one thing has stayed the same, and that's FBHP always valuing personal relationships, especially when it comes to good health and good service. You can plan on Farm Bureau Health Plans for health, dental, and vision. Get better coverage, better rates, and better service at fbhp.com/ATOZ or walk into one of their 200 plus locations across the state. I'm sure you guys have seen them. There's 200 of them. Just walk in and go get better coverage, better rates, and service. That's fbhp.com/ATOZ.
Talk about service. BetMGM is the gold standard for sports books. They aren't called the king of sports books for anything. They've also got a great offer going on right now, but you have to sign up with our promo code A2Z Sports. That's ATOZ Sports. You'll receive up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if you don't win your first bet. When you register with BetMGM, you'll get an instant access to all of their great selection. They've still got NFL futures up there. They've still got college futures up there. Heisman candidates. If you got a guy you like, go check it out. Because that's not all. They've got live betting options, player props.
AJ Swan? Are we putting futures on AJ Swan to win the Heisman, guys?
Look, some are saying, I'm not saying, but some are saying. Daily boosted odds specials, they've got it all over at BetMGM. So make sure you go check them out. And don't forget to use our promo code A to Z Sports.
All right, Jack, we had a transaction yesterday, a bunch of them. The first round of cuts for the Titans, not really anything unexpected. Most of the guys that were had moved towards the back of their position groups and of their rooms that were cut. And sure, we'll see more trickle out today around 3 p.m. So be waiting on those. And then tomorrow we'll have it. But here it is. Michael Badgley was cut from the Tennessee Titans yesterday, meaning they no longer have a kicker on their roster. When you and I talked on Thursday, Jack, we were looking at these names and being like, oh, look
gross.
at these available free agent kickers. And Mason Crosby, a name we didn't even bring up, who was, hitting 60-yard nukes over at Brentwood High School over the weekend and was showing off that he still got it. But yeah, we're looking at the available guys and we're like, well, would you rather Michael Badgley or this guy or that guy or that guy? It didn't last long for the Money Badger in Music City. He played one game here, his first stint, plays one game, his second stint in the preseason. The ugly start to practice kind of translated to the game. I guess what's your I want your take on it. Were you as off-put by Badgley on Saturday as I was, or Friday night? Yeah.
Yeah, but this is sad. When I start thinking about the Titans kicker position, I don't have any more energy to put into it to feel like mad. I just feel stuck. I'm numb to this. We talked about it last week on the Tighten Up podcast. It's just Vrabel's kicker dating game. He dates a guy for, a week or two or a game or two and moves on to the next guy. And then, it ends up being some 40-year-old that comes in and has to save the day at the end of the season. Well, it's so frustrating. I can't get mad at it because I don't want to put any energy into it. They don't put any energy into looking for a kicker. So why should I get all upset when a guy who they've brought in before, who missed an extra point with the Titans, missed a field goal with the Titans, just does it again? It's so frustrating. It's mind-numbing. And you have all these options, at the beginning of the offseason. Well, you wait and you wait and you wait, and all of them are gone. You have to sign Michael Badgley, who's as washed up as they come. It's frustrating.
I totally understand the frustration because, outside of the draft picks, I know Titans fans were all over, Chad Ryland, Jake Moody, one of these guys, being like, oh, let's bring in one of the top college guys. There is some uncertainty there, but there were veterans as well, and you didn't even have to pay for a guy like Matt Gay, who was at the top of the market. Matt Gay was the guy in the kicking market, got a nice contract, and, you don't have to go and spend that money, but when you see somebody like Brandon McManus get cut, looking for a job, and you're kind of like, okay, well, let's bring in a veteran to come in here and compete. And there didn't seem to be a huge sense of urgency. They seemed confident on their bet of Caleb Shudak and Trey Wolf. And then when that didn't work, you're kind of stuck with the leftovers. And so that's what you have right now. Michael Badgley was a leftover. He came in, he missed kicks in practice. He went 3 of 4 in the game, but doinked one from 44, missed one from 39. Way too inconsistent. And quite honestly, the way the Titans have treated kicker, how you said they don't care, it's all very nonchalant for them. That was Michael Badgley's attitude, and it rubbed me the wrong way, and I was ready for him to go the second he got there. He hadn't been a Titan 12 hours, and I was ready for him to be off the roster because he missed 5 kicks in his first practice. We went out there, talked to him, and he said, yeah, it's practice. I'm not really sweating it. I'm not really too worried about it. It's practice, man. I know what I'm capable of. We
do too, buddy. We do too now. I mean,
you should sweat it. You've gotten cut by 5 teams in the last 3 years, and you keep bouncing around. Maybe in less than that. It's 12 months he's been on 5 different teams. So maybe you should sweat what you do in practice, because if you keep doing this, you're not going to have a job. And 4 days later, he's back at home on the couch waiting for a phone call. So Michael Badgley, see ya. I'm happy that he's not. I think he's capable in the right setting with some consistency, but he was not somebody who I felt like came in and did what was necessary or asked of him. and the Titans are back to square one. No kicker on the roster right now. We are approaching the cut day deadline, and they don't have a kicker.
You brought up Brandon McManus, and I told this story on the podcast. I ran into Brandon McManus after a flight out of Denver earlier this summer, and I was wearing a Titan shirt. And I walked up, we kind of ran into each other at baggage claim. He was getting his golf clubs. I was with my buddy who was also getting his golf clubs. I said, Jacksonville this year? He said, yeah. And then I pointed to my shirt. I said, what about us? He said, yeah, I texted Mike Vrabel, but they didn't want to spend money on the kicker position. If you don't invest on a position like that, it will cost you games.
Wait, this happened?
This happened this summer, yes. Brandon McManus reached out to Mike Vrabel.
Not relayed to a Titans reporter in your life, Jack.
I told the one that signs my checks. So, and I did. We've told this story on the podcast before, and it was just frustrating. I was like, man,
this is breaking news here.
Cut Randy Bullock. Yeah, it's upsetting, but it's the reality of the situation. You know that they're not going to spend money at that position at this point, and you can't keep wondering, well, why is it not working? It's like you're driving a Ferrari off the lot, but it's got, ruined brake pads. It's going to crash.
It's a concern moving forward as well, because, we're about to talk about some position battles around the league. Like this list of guys, and I think you could lump Mason Crosby in with these guys. These are going to be your cheap options. These are going to be the guys that are looking for work. They want an NFL contract. And, they're especially guys like Zane Gonzalez or Rodrigo Blankenship, younger guys. They're just trying to get back into the game right now, and they're looking for what they can get. So the Titans could go cheap and get them, but I think there might be some capable options coming available after some of these kicking battles around the league are settled. The question is, can you get, the Titans aren't the only team going to be looking for a kicker. Can you get one of the elite options out there if you're not willing to spend on it? That's a concern. So I've seen the chat. The chat has been very lively. And I guess real quick, Kane did come in with a super chat, said, perfect. Both of the Levis will be QB2 guys. Let's hear how that crow taste here for the plethora of excuses. He was a wasted pick. As we said, I think Will Levis is still quarterback too, Kane, unfortunately for you. And if you want evidence how the Titans feel about Will Levis,
okay, cool.
or what their plan is for Will Levis, and I don't even mean this as an indictment on Malik, and we're completely getting off the rails here, but Will Levis has been unavailable for over 2 weeks of the preseason. You've seen him play 7 drives this preseason, while Malik has been complimented for his positive strides, played over 2 full games of football. And Will isn't even necessarily healthy right now. But asked on Saturday, who was the backup? Mike said, we're not ready to make that decision yet. We'll have to see how healthy Will is. There you go. So, they're waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting to see if Will Levis can get healthy to be their backup, even after he hasn't been available and Malik has looked better. So, hats off to Malik. Kane, go read my article talking about Malik Willis on Friday night and how I felt like the roller coaster that he was showed a lot of improvement for him in his maturity and, emotional development. So go read the article. But Will Levis is still Rand Carthon's guy. He's still Mike Vrabel's guy. He's still the 33rd overall pick in the draft. And he's still their plan at quarterback long-term. Sorry if you don't like it. That is what it is. Okay. We are going to actually get to this conversation because
let's get to it.
There are 3 position battles around the NFL right now, Jack, that I think are intriguing for the Titans potentially finding their future kicker. 3 position battles, and you actually have a couple surprises that you're going to bring up to me as well that I am not ready for. So I'm going to show you guys those, but first want to tell everybody about Wilson County Hyundai. Make Wilson County Hyundai a part of your new car buying process in Lebanon or at wilsoncountyhyundai.com. Wilson County Hyundai is the place to go for your new ride. You can get 0% APR for 48 months on Sonata, Santa Fe's, Tucson's. Payne Bone and his team at Wilson County Hyundai are happy to guide you through the financing process, assisting with buying or trading in your vehicle. You can forget those downtown Nashville prices. Head to Lebanon and see friends at wilsoncountyhyundai.com. Also want to give a shout out to the Bone and Joint Institute, the region's destination for comprehensive orthopedic and sports medicine care out in Franklin with a state-of-the-art rehab facility. You can visit them at boneandjointtn.org. Whenever you get hurt in life, you have to know who to trust, and you can trust the Bone and Joint Institute. You can do it all under one roof: clinic, rehab, testing, imaging, surgery. You don't have to drive all around Middle Tennessee to go to your different appointments. Go get good, reliable care, and don't fumble on your recovery. boneandjointtn.org. Jack, okay, we are going to talk about 3 different position battles here as we get set to look towards cut day. Here is one, the first of them. New England, Nick Folk, Chad Ryland. Chad Ryland, the 4th-round draft pick out of Maryland, is a rookie. Nick Folk, a reliable veteran. They've both been pretty good this preseason. You have to assume New England is going to go with Chad Ryland here. Nick Folk, potentially a free agent and a veteran that the Titans, sign me up for Nick Folk, as the Titans need some reliability. And if that comes in the form of a veteran like him, so be it. Second one, out there in New Orleans. Is this Group E, Group A? Do you know how to say this last name?
I'm not going to pretend like I do, but I'm deducting that it's probably Group.
Like the Group is what we'll call it. And Will Lutz has been awesome for the Saints over the last few years. They brought in UDFA, Blake Group A, and he's been just as good, just as reliable. They both have leg to hit from 50 plus. One of them is not going to make the team. One of them is going to be on the free agent market, and I love that option for the Titans. Third one to watch is out there in LA. It's Cameron Dicker the kicker, and Dustin Hopkins as the 2 guys right now, still yet to be decided who's going to win that job, but a potential option there as well. I think Dicker's going to be the guy in LA, so that would mean Hopkins is a free agent. I would assume the Saints are going to keep Will Lutz. And maybe that, but
I don't know.
People saying the other way around. So maybe Will Lutz is a free agent. And then, like I said, I think Ryland wins in New England. So Nick Folk, a potential free agent coming available as well. So those are my 3. You have 2. And as you explain your 2, I'm going to ask this question to the chat, because I find this interesting. It's, what team's kicking battle should the Titans be most interested in? So it's New England, it's New Orleans, it's the Chargers. It's 2 of them from Jack. That is the question. And while the chat throws in their answers, Jack, enlighten me on your surprises that you've got.
Yeah, so one of them is a big surprise, and it's kind of, it wasn't a discussion heading into this preseason, but after a really rocky preseason, Cade York, second-year kicker for the Cleveland Browns, his job is up for grabs. Stefanski's kind of stuck by him and said he's our kicker. But you mentioned Nick Folk. I think that there's a possibility the Browns try and trade for him. Cade York this preseason is 2 of 6 on field goals between 40 and 49 yards. He's had 3 chances to win a game with a 40-yard kick this preseason, missed all 3 of them. There's a lot of frustration up in Cleveland. He's got a huge leg. Last year as a rookie, I believe his first make was from 58. 4 of 7 from 50. He's got a big leg. Those familiar with the SEC and LSU remember just how good he was there. So that's one to watch. While it's not really a battle just yet, there's a possibility that the Browns go and make a trade for a guy like Nick Folk, who is my number one option.
So that one, to clarify, that's just Cade York is their only kicker right now, but Cade York could be a free agent if they make another move.
Cade York is playing his way out of Cleveland.
Yeah, but if he's playing his way out of Cleveland, do you want him in Tennessee?
Yes, I absolutely do. Look, beggars can't be choosers here, Sam. And I know that Cade Folk had a good preseason. He hit 75% last year, but he's got the leg to hit from 60. He's a weapon. You just got to get him when he's and kicking as a rookie. It's 75%
last year.
75% last year.
Total. That's not good.
It's not good, but he's a rookie. He's
not good.
He was a rookie, and he had he had 3 misses from 50 plus. So that's going to deflate your numbers a little bit.
Yeah, I thought you were sitting here telling me he hit 75% of his 50-yarders last year, and this is why they need to get 75 is bad, and the way you're making him sound this preseason, I'm not sure I have any interest in Cade York.
Well, you're not going to get a guy who's totally locked down a job here, Sam. I mean, you got to choose from some options that have been washed out from a couple of other places. York did go 4 for 7 from 50 last year, so it was over 50%. He's an option. Another option, I came in with 3, and you took 2 of them already, Nick Folk and Will Lutz. I don't know. I think I would rather have Cade York than Will Lutz. I know Will Lutz has made some big kicks in the postseason, but he too last year, he was 74% last year.
He was. My only thing with Lutz is like the pedigree, like the history of success. He's got years over 90. He's got a year over 90%. And even last year in a bad year, 4 of 6 from 50 plus. He did struggle. He had 4 misses from between 40 and 49. But I think Will Lutz has the history and the pedigree as an NFL kicker of making those deep ones that I feel like I would prefer that to.
Here's the thing, though. Here's the difference. York's misses. Cleveland's not an easy place to kick. Lutz gets the kick in a dome. So
I'm interested in breaking those down and seeing how many of his misses came outside versus inside. That's interesting.
So it's kind of like a weighted percentage that we have to kind of break down there, and which makes Folk's work even more impressive because the 2 seasons before last year, he was over 92% in New England. Last season, he didn't even have a bad year, 86.5. That was higher than Randy Bullock. Yep, Messi, bring him on over.
Bring Messi, bring in Mukhtar, sign Mukhtar.
You have to give him a share of the revenue deal. But, the elements, it's hard to kick in the elements. And, Tennessee, when it gets a little cold outside, it's tricky to kick out there. It's hard. Yeah. But everyone's saying, oh, Jack just wants a guy who can hit from 50 plus. That's because the Titans haven't had a guy who can do that consistently since Suckup's early days.
Well, I'm with you on that aspect. I think, like, having a guy from 50 that can hit from 50 plus would be phenomenal. You have to make sure that you can make from 40 to 49 as well. Like, you can't sacrifice your accuracy. And I think that was the deal with a guy like Trey Wolff was I was super high on Trey Wolff coming into camp. I liked watching him kick. The guy had an absolute missile of a leg. It was like 6'5", just could absolutely pound the football. But he was way too inconsistent from the medium ranges that made you a little bit uncomfortable. Inconsistent ball flights, certain things like that where, like, I think he has the leg to be a really good NFL kicker. But if you're not polished enough to make the easy ones, that's a concern. You can't give away those points.
I just think if you can hit from 50, you should be able to hit from inside 50.
You think so? It's a little bit of a different process, though, like at least mentally. But yes, you would think so. All right, so Cade York's one of them. What's your second one here?
The other one's even more dangerous. If you didn't like Cade York, you're going to have a lot to say about this guy. That's Brett Maher. And Brett Maher, he was released from Dallas for having one of the worst postseasons I've ever seen from a kicker. He had a horrible postseason last year, but he did hit 91% of his field goals in the regular season.
Yeah,
and it went 9 for 11 from 50 plus. Sam, he had a 60-yarder last year, and that wasn't even his first one.
So where is he? By the way, he's
up in
Denver, and that is he won that job already, though, did he not? I'm pretty sure
I'm not totally sure if he's won it yet. I do know that they were working out a handful of different guys up there, but with that leg up in Denver, 70 is in play. But if Brett Maher becomes available and he's moved past these yips issues that have popped up early in the preseason, although he did have a nice game out this past weekend. He kind of corrected some of that. I think he hit a 47-yarder. When he's hot, he's hot. When he's hot, he's one of the best kickers in the NFL. You just don't know if you're going to get good Brett or bad Brett. And that's
I like
do the Titans take a risky option? I'm not so sure. But 91% last year, 89 the year before. He's got at least 3 from over 60. His longest in his career is from 63 yards. So there's a lot to like about him. It's just where he's at mentally probably needs to be evaluated.
I like that one way more than Cade York. I don't know what your thing is with Cade York. Dude hasn't been good.
Cade York.
All right. Well, I like Maher more. I think he has more of a pedigree, like you said. And, if he's over his little postseason thing, which he very well could be, he's very, very good. And he's a weapon at kicker. So my only thing with that one is, I don't know if he's available. I don't know if he has any intention, if the Broncos have any intention of letting him go. These 3, we know 3 guys out of this group are going to become available. So, Jack, question for you then, the same one for the chat. England, New Orleans, LA. Which kicking battle should the Titans try and poach the loser of if it's just between those 3?
It's got to be New England. That little tunnel from Nashville to New England seems to have closed over the last couple of years, but Nick Folk would be a hell of a way to bring it back up. And you'd have to think that Vrabel still knows a few people over there and can maybe get the lowdown on the situation. But I do think Nick Folk is absolutely the one to watch here. Not interested in Dustin Hopkins whatsoever. It's really Folk or Lutz for me of those 3, and it's Folk has the edge, even though he's 38 years old.
We're going to assume that Groupie wins this one, Dicker wins in LA, and Dryland wins in New England. So yeah, the question then becomes: is it Nick Folk, is it Will Lutz, or is it Dustin Hopkins? You're between these 2, and
with
you're
the edge to Folk.
Mm-hmm. I have to agree here. Nick Folk, I love Will Lutz too. I think it's close between those 2, but Nick Folk is just so consistent. I've got the numbers here. 32 of 37 last year was 4 of 5 from 50 plus. 36 of 39 the year before was 5 of 8 from 50. So all 3 of his misses came from 50, and he was perfect. 31 of 31 on all of his other kicks. Like, even at ages 37 and 38, Nick Folk is as good of an option as the Titans have had at kicker in a very long time. The only worry with Nick Folk, I suppose, is the fact that, like, he could get traded or, like, moved instead of just, like, cut. So you might have to be a little bit more aggressive, and he might not just be sitting there as a free agent. Like, if you're the Patriots, I think you have to be a little bit smart here and say, all right, well, we know we have a commodity that some teams around the league are wanting. So what can we get for our veteran kicker? And as you mentioned, how willing are Mike Vrabel and the Titans to pay a premium either financially or in draft capital to go and get that guy? I have my doubts.
And one of the McManus story that I told earlier, he signed in Jacksonville for $2.5 million. That's not even a lot of money at that position.
And it's built into the Titans budget right now. Like, they have that money sitting there in available cap space, and so yeah.
It's just collecting dust. The whole trade aspect makes this thing a lot harder, because if the Titans aren't willing to spend a late round pick on a kicker, like a young kicker,
they're not going to trade one for one.
Why would they trade a draft pick for a 38-year-old on his last leg, literally?
Yeah, so I don't know what a guy like Nick Folk gets in a trade market, maybe a 7th, maybe a 6th, like, if you're lucky, but I still don't see the Titans doing that. And then I also don't necessarily see them out spending the market. There's other teams, like, quite honestly, these Chargers fans have been clamoring for a new kicker other than these 2 people. Like, they are like, oh, we could go get Nick Folk. And that's always a possibility, as well as some of these battles go, is that, as we saw in Tennessee, just because you got 2 kickers and 1 job doesn't mean either one of them are getting it. You could always, reshuffle the deck. This is an absolute mess here.
No doubt.
Less than 2 weeks away from week 1 kickoff, and who's doing it, who's doing that kickoff still remains up in the air. Let's get to our end of show segment today. I've got 1, maybe 2 questions for the chat. And Jack, I told you to prep one, so I don't know what you're going to ask here. It is a Monday. Ask me anything. All of our end of show topics are sponsored by Wilson County Hyundai. They power it. But today I want to give a shout out to BetMGM as well. Use the bonus code ATOZ Sports on BetMGM to get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. That's ATOZ Sports and a second chance to win big. Wilson County Hyundai, make them a part of your new car buying process at wilsoncountyhyundai.com or over in Lebanon. They can get you 0% APR on 2023 Sonatas, Santa Fe's, and Tucson. So we love our friends at Wilson County Hyundai as well. All right, Jack, ask me anything. I promised the chat we would bring this up on Friday, and I have to ask my first question. Have you been watching Hard Knocks? And if so, give me a grade for this season of Hard Knocks. I've been starting it and trying to work my way through it. And I'm curious to see what the population of NFL fans out there that still watches Hard Knocks is. So, Jack, have you watched Hard Knocks?
Yeah, I watched the first 2 episodes. The second one I paid less attention to than the first. It has been better than recent years. I'll say that.
You
It's definitely
think?
been better. It's been
Why
better.
is that?
The storylines in New York. I think this is the first time. Like Detroit was really fun. I actually really did enjoy Dan Campbell, but New York's more relevant in the when it comes to the Super Bowl conversation, and they've got some interesting young guys in Garrett Wilson, and we just saw Corey Davis retire out of nowhere up there. Like there's a lot going on in New York. I think Robert
Yeah.
Saleh is a fun guy to get behind. That defense is young and really talented. So I think it's just, to me, it's especially since they're in the AFC as opposed to the Lions in the NFC last year. They're more relevant to me. They're more relevant to the conversation in the NFL and the Super Bowl. So, and I think it's interesting just having a camera follow Aaron Rodgers around. There's not really many dudes around the league that I would want to put a camera around more than Aaron Rodgers just because of how weird he is. So that's been fun to watch for me.
Yeah, so the chat interested. A lot of people have not been watching Hard Knocks. It looks like Ashley says no. So does Top Tier. Nathaniel's no. Hoshi's no. Scary Harry says no. Maddie says no. Thank you. Not at all. I really don't care about other teams. Haven't watched it. I watched the QB and Full Swing on Netflix, but haven't watched that. Like a lot of people, DeMarco says he's never watched it. Never watched Hard Knocks. So surprised. I love Hard Knocks. Hard Knocks gets me in the mood for when I see Hard Knocks, I'm like, okay, football's back. We're back. And I do like hearing some guys mic'd up and seeing reactions to things that you like see play out on your TV. Like it's cool to me that you can watch a preseason game on your television and then go behind the scenes of how an NFL team reacted and responded to that specific preseason game. I will say this, and I'm trying to look for the comment. It is dramatized a bit. And so this has been my issue with it over the last couple years is really realizing, one, every Hard Knocks episode and every Hard Knocks team is the exact same in their storyline. And two, I'm tired of only focusing on straight up positives and how much this season are we going to talk about how great Aaron Rodgers is, not just as a player but as a person. This was a PR stunt for Aaron Rodgers essentially to be like, all this negative PR we're going to turn into positive PR and make everybody love him, and it's working. Like I'm watching it being like, man, this dude's charismatic, but then in the back of my head I'm like, this is a joke. Leave Schreiber, they're trying to make Aaron look great here. It's all dramatized, and I have begun to tune it out a little bit more than I have in the past, which is sad because I like the show. So I was very curious. Now, question 2 for you, Jack. Chat might not care, but you're rocking the hat. I said we would talk about it. So what is the vibe about Vanderbilt football? 1-0, they beat Hawaii. I got to say, Jack, it was a bad win.
It was ugly.
It was ugly. Ugly win. They got so dang lucky at 2 touchdowns stopped short of the goal line that then turned into reviewed calls twice, an interception on one of them. It was a lucky day for the old Dolphins. For a team that had predictions to win the SEC, crazy, but with the expectations maybe up a little bit here with another year for Clark Lee. What is the vibe? What is the vibe about the Doors?
Look, it was an ugly win. There's a lot of Vandy fans that I follow that are upset about how it went down. But we can't forget Vandy was up by 21 in the fourth quarter before an utter collapse happened. The secondary
collapses matter.
The secondary couldn't cover or couldn't stop a nosebleed, and it just got a little ugly. The offense is so fun to watch, though. AJ Swan's going to be great at quarterback for the next few years. Will Shepard's an NFL talent. Jaden McGowan's probably going to have his name in the SEC Special Teams Player of the Year conversation. There's a couple of guys on defense that can play up to all SEC level, and CJ Taylor and DeRicky Wright, who already has 2 picks on the year. I think a lot of people are going to look at that Hawaii squad from last year that went 3-9 and say, man, Vandy really almost blew one of the worst team in the Mountain West, which
they are one of the worst teams in college football.
Is partly true. Timmy Chang, though, it does have that program back on the right tracks. And while they shouldn't be playing within 7 to an SEC team like Vanderbilt, they will be improved. The vibe around the program to me is the same as it was when the season started. They've got a shot to make a bowl game for the first time in a while this year. And they're going to have to do it behind that offense because that defense is hard to trust.
Bowl game. I feel like that feels lofty to me because I think watching them against Hawaii, I think they're going to lose a lot of SEC games 55-28. Like, I think I think AJ Swan might throw 3 touchdowns a game, even in the SEC, and Vandy fans are going to be able to hang their hat on it. I don't know how they stop an SEC offense, even like the lower tier ones. Like, you get South Carolina, and I don't know how you stop an SEC offense looking at your inability to cover Hawaii.
Yeah, it's week 0. It's early, but there is room for improvement. There's no doubt. But it is nice to have Auburn on the schedule. It's nice to have Kentucky and Missouri and a horrible Florida team in the division. And if they beat Wake Forest,
Florida team.
Horrible Florida team. Terrible
Florida's
one.
Going to be better than Vandy.
Vandy beat them with Anthony Richardson last year. What makes you feel like Graham Mertz, the worst quarterback to ever play for Wisconsin, is going to do anything better? I'm just saying.
Another year, the head coach
they're winnable
down there, and I think
Florida's bad, man.
Florida's bad. A guy wearing a Vanderbilt Commodores hat cannot come on the show and say Florida's horrible. I'm excited. Like, you can't chalk that up as a win on the schedule, Jack.
Florida's season win total is 5.5. That's very low. Very, very low.
Over on the Gators.
Not my money.
I just watched the Swamp documentary, whatever, on Netflix. So I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. Jack, your Ask Me Anything question for myself in the chat before we wrap up here on a nice Monday.
Yeah. So sticking with college football, I want to ask you, because you're from Big Ten country up there in Chicago.
Yeah.
Give me a percentage number, and I want to see the chat file in with some answers here as well. What percentage chance do you give a team from the Big Ten to win a national title? It would be their first one since 2014. And while you're thinking, let me remind you, since 2006, the SEC has claimed a national title in 13 seasons. 13 seasons since 2006, there's been an SEC champion.
Chance this year for a Big Ten team?
Big Ten. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I'd go 20%. I like Jameson's number here. Like, the Big Ten is actually very improved this year. Penn State's a legit team. Wisconsin's a legit team. Michigan and Ohio State, as always, are going to be legit. Illinois is kind of like frisky to be top 25. Obviously, they're not contending to that degree. Iowa, similar. But I really think Ohio State's their only bet. I don't believe J.J. McCarthy is the guy for Michigan to win a national title. Like, I know they have, I don't know. Michigan has a lot of the pieces, but I think you need the quarterback, and I don't know if they have the quarterback. I think Ohio State has a legit shot at it again. And quite honestly, the loss to Georgia last year gave me more faith in Ohio State this year than I think I had after they lost to Michigan. Like, does Ohio State win the Big Ten? Maybe. But I think they are the best team to go toe-to-toe. My only worry would be the Big Ten eats each other alive with at least 4 to 5 good to elite teams, and then you end up without any of them getting in. Like, you need a one-loss Big Ten champion to get in. Do you have one is the question.
Yeah, when you look to the Big Ten, it's Michigan or nothing for me, probably. They've got the best running back group that we've maybe seen since Arkansas had Darren McFadden over there. And I'm forgetting, I don't know, Felix Jones. The team that is outside the SEC that I think has the best shot has to be USC. Lincoln Riley's finally been there long enough to get some guys in there. And Caleb Williams is not to be played with. Now, they could have looked a little better against San Jose State, but it's very early in the season, and I'm not holding it against them for winning. Yeah, for me, it'd probably be lower. I think 10% is a number. They're going to get a team in. We'll see who it is. And what the SEC does have on the Big Ten is the SEC only plays 8 conference games. Big Ten beats up on each other with 9. So those numbers aren't inflated when it comes to wins at the end of the season. So if they can just tread water.
I think that's interesting because in the past, I mean, we've gotten both Michigan and Ohio State in, or at least one of them in with that last rivalry game at the end of the year, meaning everything. But if one of those teams loses a game to Penn State in November, like what does that do for that, that game between those two teams? And, is it possible for a 2-loss Big Ten champion to get in? That's a big question this year. I don't know if I think that's possible given the SEC plus USC being frisky. So I don't know, but hopefully maybe it's the Big Ten year.
We'll see. I mean,
they
were knocking on the door
in the Big Ten, so like they care a little bit more up there about we love our college football. It just means a little bit more. It's a conference of champions.
Well, you're taking something from every conference, I see.
Yeah, Big Ten means more conference of champions. So
we'll see. Time will tell.
I don't make the rules.
Isn't it fun that we're at least just having this discussion right now because football's actually back? I'm so excited.
I'm really trying to buy into college football. I was really dialed in. Oh, here's my sneaky one, by the way, because this is my guy, has been my guy since before he was at this college, and they looked nice over the weekend. Sam Hartman, Heisman.
Oh, yeah.
Sam Hartman for the Heisman. Early. Get in early. Sam Hartman for the Heisman. Notre Dame's freaky. They might be good. Notre Dame might be good with an actual quarterback for once. So
he was in the kitchen cooking up a 3 Michelin star meal out there. And I mean, at Wake, he was really good under Clawson.
I hate Notre Dame. I'm anti-Notre Dame all the time. I love Sam Hartman.
Hartman's a dog.
Yeah. So, all right, we'll see. But all right, guys, that's it for today. Thank you as always. Before you go, like the show. Not enough likes on the show before we head out here. Make sure you hit subscribe as well. Cut day content coming out. More roster cuts later today for the Titans, and the deadline looming tomorrow afternoon. We'll be back at 8 a.m. tomorrow to talk about potential moves that are incoming and get ready for the 2023 season. Follow us on social media at A to Z Sports on X and keep it dialed in for all the Titans content. Appreciate it as always. We will see you guys tomorrow.